Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight in the studio Dr. Ehab Ooussef, the political and the strategic analyst. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. It's a great honor to be with you and with the audience, and it's being with the Nile TV International is a great honor for me.
Anytime. The honor is all mine, of course. We did see the suffering for the Palestinians over the past 2 years, more specifically 21 or 22 months ever since October of 2023. How would you see the situation on the ground for today and ever since the negotiations had started between Hamas, the resistance fighters, and the Israeli occupation forces in Qatar with the mediation of Egypt and the United States?
Look, when we talk about this incident since October 2022, I think the most important to see is to evaluate where the Palestinians are since 1948 and why they are doing this. They are trying to fight for their freedom.
Yes.
They are asking for their right to have their own state with their own government, to be able to serve their people, make sure that they are living freely on their land. Since 1948 and then the sequences which happened in 1967, most of their land has been occupied by the Israelis, and they are not having any rights over their land since then. Sadly saying, since that day till today, we're talking about more than 70 years, the whole international community were not able to support these Palestinians to be able to retrieve back their rights. And with time, they created their own freedom fighters, or what they call freedom fighters, the people who are fighting for the freedom of the land, one of which is Hamas. And though Egypt has a lot of views about Hamas during the full years of their existence, but what they're doing, what they did in October was to try to put the highlight on the situation and make the whole universe see the amount of crisis that the people are suffering there from. What happened since then till today, a lot of martyrs has been killed by the Israelis. A lot of people have been injured. We see the big amount is from youth and from kids, maybe babies as well. We've seen 2 days ago a baby has died from not being able to have any nutrition, any food, anything that make him able to survive for living. What we see now is that we still have a crisis, we still have a problem that has not been solved, and the good thing that happened since October is that the international community, and when we talk about the international community, you have to differentiate between two sides, governments and people.
Yes.
The people on the street has felt the sufferness that the Palestinians are facing, and they went into demonstrations in the universities and the streets asking for the Palestinian rights. But at the same time, the governments are giving a blind eye or a deaf ear to what has been saying. The United Nations didn't do its role, though they are sometimes trying to take the cases to the Security Council, but at the end, veto is issued by the United States, so nothing is happening on the ground, except the people are suffering, dying, and no supply of food, medicine. Even hospitals has been exploded. So everything is dramatic on this area, and the crisis is still existing and still continuing till today.
We know the stance of Egypt and the Egyptian President, His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, since day one of the aggression by the Israelis and the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians and the Hamas fighters in the Gaza Strip, on the humanitarian and the diplomatic level. Because today we have seen Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati heading for New York to be participating in a high-level United Nations meeting that will be held on the 28th and the 29th of this month, to be focusing on a solution, a peaceful solution for the conflict. First of all, how do you see the efforts of Egypt on the diplomatic level for the past 2 years, nearly 2 years, to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the possibility of having a peaceful, quick resolution to the conflict?
I think we have to be optimistic, though there is no clear light at the end of the tunnel, sadly saying. Egypt is trying to do its best. putting into consideration all its circumstances. I mean, we have financial problems, we have a big population, we have a peace treaty with Israel, so there are a lot of constraints that around Egypt's movements. But at the same time, Egypt is moving heavily on the political level, trying to expedite any solution that can take place between Israel and the Palestinians to solve the problem, and we are looking for a two-state solution, and the President has been several times mentioning that this is the way to solve the problem. At the same time, we have been always saying, or Egypt has been always saying since, through President Sisi and before that, that no peace will happen on the Middle East unless the Palestinian problem has been solved and the Palestinians has the right to take their ownership of a state to live peacefully in. But still, I mean, with all the efforts that Egypt is doing, we need support from other countries. We need Arab countries to be standing on our side. We need the international community to take initiatives and support on this. We all read about the initiative that has been taken by the France and Saudi Arabia about the summit that you kindly mentioned, that will take 2 days in the United Nations in New York, with the objective of trying to find a peaceful solution for the Palestinian problem. But at the end of the day, we all know that the peaceful solution has to come with going back to the borders of 1967, where the Palestinians has the right to take their land, and Jerusalem to be or Quds al-Sharqiyya to be the capital of the state, and they have the right to form their government. And at the same time, they have the right to be compensated for all the damages that happen in Gaza and other cities in Palestine. Since
the two-state solution, is it realistic now to be demanding this?
That's why I mean, when we are going through our minister, and we really acknowledge all the efforts that Dr. Abdel Ati is doing. And we're going to the United Nations, attending the conference that will be held under the supervision or the support of the Saudis and the France, and the international community will be existing. We have to see what can be done. And what can be done has to be realistic, as you mentioned, and this has to go with what can be enforced on Israel.
Yes.
What can the international community enforce Israel to do? And if there is nothing that we can enforce Israel to do, then it's going to be very complicated to find the solution. At the time that we see that Netanyahu and the ministers from the Israeli cabinet don't give any value to the Human Rights Council, to the United Nations, and they don't abide by what should be done on this level. At the same time, they are trying to use propaganda to show that they are victims, they are not criminals, while they did so many activities that can be labeled under crimes of war against the Palestinians. So the issue is not complicated if you put the things properly on the table, but it's complicated if you have no hand to enforce the right on the, if we say, criminals or illegal activities that's happening from the other side.
Doctor, you mentioned a very important point. It all depends on who can enforce Israel to do something or to stop the atrocities and the violence against the civilians in the Gaza Strip, and how can it be done? Because we have seen a couple of days ago the decision by France and the announcement by the French President Emmanuel Macron to be recognizing a Palestinian state. Do you think that this is one way to push Israel to stop the atrocities against the Palestinians?
As I mentioned, we have to be very optimistic, and we have to try to build on any activities that happen from any leader on the international community, especially when it comes from France, and France is a big country in the European Union. But from the other side, a country or a state means land with certain borders, population, and government. So if you announce a Palestinian state and you don't announce its borders, then it's not going to be applicable. Then you don't have a state. And if they say this should be announced on November, as far as we understand, the United Nations by the President Macron. So we'll see what's going to happen, and I think that there are a lot of activities, political activities that's happening from now till then to identify what exactly would be the state from his point of view, or from France's point of view. Because if you don't mention the borders of the state, if you don't mention 1967 borders, then it's not going to be something with a, it's going to be like emotional value, but it's not going to be a practical value on the ground.
On the other hand, we do know about the meeting that is taking place or will be taking place in New York and the United Nations with the participation of Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati to be finding a peaceful solution, a quick resolution for what is happening in Palestine and in the Gaza Strip. What are the concrete results that would be expected from those meetings and those high-level summits to be applied on the ground?
This is something very important, because the people suffering on the ground is it's unhuman, and we all are feeling pain for them and what's happening with them.
Yes.
But going to your very important question, what should be the outcome of this summit? Peace has to have two sides, and when Egypt had its peace treaty with Israel, there was the two sides were agreeing that we need to have peace on the ground. And at the same time, there was someone, which was on the United States at the time, supervising or making sure that this agreement will happen. If we don't have the big international countries supporting what will be the objective of this meeting, then it's going to be just the two sides talking together, and we're reaching no solution at the end. So we have to have the goodwill from both sides. We have to have the ability or the willing to have peace, and I think this at the moment is very challenging because the objectives are different. Palestinians want to live peacefully in their country that are border to border with Israel, and Israel doesn't want, Netanyahu and his cabinet doesn't want to have Palestinians on this ground, and they want to move Palestinians from this area to any other country so they can take the whole piece of land. We heard at certain point of time, President Trump talking about a new area on this region, and it's going to be more objective towards economy, and they didn't mention any Palestinians at this stage.
Yes.
So we need to have certain objectives that can be aligned together. This is the role of the ministers of foreign affairs, for intellectuals, to start bridging with the Israelis, with the international community, with the United States, and try to find a solution. And that's why sometimes I feel when Egyptian people talk to Israelis, and because Israelis they're not all of them, they are not criminals. Some of them are looking for peace as well, and there are movements that say peace for now, and some activities. If we can bridge with the people in the United States, with the people in the EU, with the people in Israel, and try to find a concrete method that we can build on in the future, these people can pressure their governments to start implementing this. And we have seen this in the EU and the United States, when the people from the universities, when the students from the universities went into demonstrations. The whole government at the time in these countries were very shocked, and they tried to accommodate the things at a certain point of time. Having said that, so we need to internationally communicate, we need to internationally try to build bridges, we try to reach a solid, or at least a foundation of ground that we can participate in on building together on, and at the same time we need the Arab states to be united. This is the core of the game. I think if the Arab states are united under the umbrella of the Arab League, I think we can pressure a lot on other countries. But sadly saying, each leader from the Arab community is trying to maybe talk from his point of view. They don't get aligned. Even when we see the summits that are done in the Arab League, we don't find a concrete result that can be built on from this leader and be pressured from this leader. So what we need to do is to organize our home from inside Arab world or Arab League, and at the same time bridge with others, try to find moderate people on the other side, try to understand how we can, because at the end Palestinians are humans. They need to have a place to live in peacefully, respectably, and they can build the future. This is one. Second, if you leave them like this, what are you expecting from the coming generation? What are you expecting from the youth that has been suffering for years and years under bombing, no food, no education? They are suffering. They're seeing families killed, the father and mother. And what are you expecting from these guys? They're going to be having a will to revenge, not just from Israel, but from the whole world. So we need to work on this as soon as possible.
Yes, Doctor, allow me to be going to the other report
Please.
of the daily debate for tonight, as Dr. Ehab Ooussef said that the Arab world needs to be united and Egypt must, as its destiny, to be taking the center stage in terms of finding a peaceful solution for the Israeli atrocities, for the violence against the civilians in the Gaza Strip, and mediating efforts alongside Qatar and the United States to be finding a ceasefire as soon as possible. We'll be having more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
Cairo keeps reaffirming its steadfast commitment to achieving comprehensive ceasefire in Gaza despite a temporary pause for consultations. Mediators acknowledged measurable progress in the latest round of talks. Egypt and Qatar pledged to sustain efforts for a full ceasefire agreement that includes hostage exchanges and humanitarian corridors into Gaza. The international landscape is shifting. More than 125 British MPs have signed a letter urging recognition of a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, the worsening humanitarian crisis has drawn unified condemnation from the UK, France and Germany. The European trio urged Israel to lift aid restrictions immediately and called for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages and Hamas disarmament. They labeled the situation a humanitarian catastrophe of global moral significance. At this epicenter, the crisis is a child's life hanging in the balance. Médecins Sans Frontières reports a threefold increase in severe malnutrition among children under 5 in just 2 weeks, with 1 in 4 children and pregnant or breastfeeding women screened found malnourished. Especially alarming, Gaza's specialized therapeutic food supplies are projected to disappear by mid-August unless immediate change comes. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres sharply rebuked global inaction, branding Gaza food crisis a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience. In the storm of devastation, Egypt stands firm, leading not only as mediator but as a guardian of humanity, amplifying voices of the voiceless, spearheading humanitarian and diplomatic initiatives aimed at alleviating the crisis in Gaza and reviving the path to a two-state solution.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the program for tonight in the studio is Dr. Ehab Ooussef, the political and strategic analyst. Thank you very much, Doctor, once again.
It's a great honor, really,
for being with us. We're speaking about the announcement of the French President Emmanuel Macron to be recognizing Palestine as a state, and you mentioned that there needs to be concrete steps, tangible results on the ground for the benefit of the Palestinians. On the other hand, what are the risks taken by France? What are the political gains that will be benefiting France from this decision?
Macron is putting himself on a position that he will be recognized internationally. This is one. Second, he'll be recognized by the history. So he's taking a great move, and I think it will be much welcomed. But will this be the position of the other countries in the EU or not? I think that this is what we need to build on.
Yes.
As we mentioned, we have still a couple of months till this announcement will happen. Today there were some documents that has been submitted to Abbas Abou Mazen about this announcement by the French ambassador and recognition of the Palestinian state. So what we need to do, I mean, as Egypt and building on our role in this crisis since 1948, and Egypt is the only country that has been standing on the first line of defense to protect Palestinians, taking care of what's happening, trying to bring the land back, and we've been through several wars because of our position. So I think building on this and the political role that we are doing, I think that we have to take a lot of activities, networking with all the leaders, try to building bridges to make sure that this announcement will not going to come solely from one country, but will be supported from other countries as well. Whether we talk about Africa, we talk about EU, either China, all the community, and whoever we are able to convince to support this initiative will add a lot of value to it in the future. Having said what we said, then we have to go back to what will be the content of the state. And I think that Dr. Abdel Ati, our foreign minister, with all the activities that he's doing, they are all aware that we have to try to set the rule of what will be the state. Because if we just announce that will be a Palestinian state without mentioning any borders, this will not going to help a lot in the coming future.
So, Doctor, finally, for the last couple of minutes of the episode for tonight, on the other hand, we have spoken a lot about the diplomatic efforts by Egypt and France and the decisions and what happened over the past few days and hours. On the other hand, something that took place today is the decision by the Egyptian Red Crescent to be sending hundreds of trucks containing food supplies, medical supplies, flour for the residents of the Gaza Strip. How would you see on the humanitarian level the efforts of Egypt to alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip?
No, we have to be very clear about this, because there are some people who are trying to jeopardize or at least don't give the right messages about what Egypt is doing. Egypt has announced through its president and several times since what happened in October till now that our borders are open 24 hours a day, ready to move any goods from Egypt side, from Rafah side to the Israeli, to the Palestinian borders. But on the other side, there is the Israeli borders who are blocking the humanitarian aid to enter.
Yes.
And lucky enough, during the last couple of days, I think that more than 100 or 200 trucks has been able to enter into Gaza, taking supplies to them. And at the same time, the Emiratis and other countries are sending through their planes some medical and some aid support and food to the Palestinians there. As I said,
yes,
Egyptians are supporting the Palestinian case and crisis since day one, heavily from the deep of their heart. We lost a lot of martyrs during the last decades,
yes,
trying to help to bring their country back, and we're still going to continue doing this.
Yes, hopefully so. Dr. Ehab Ooussef, the political and strategic analyst, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
It's
a great honor to be with you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And this brings us to the end of the daily debate for tonight. However, we'll be leaving you with the latest presidential activities for His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi that took place over the past week, all wrapped up in the upcoming report. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives Mr. Ahmed Abul Gheit, the Secretary General of the Arab League. The meeting tackled the latest developments in the present crisis and Arab issues, on top of which came the most recent updates on the Gaza Strip and the situation in the West Bank. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives General Michael Corella, the commander of the U.S. Central Command, in the presence of General Abdelmajid Sarr, the General Commander of the Armed Forces and the Minister of Defense and Military Production, as well as the U.S. Ambassador to Egypt, Hiro Mustafa. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with Major General Mukhtar Abdel Latif, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Arab Organization for Industrialization. During the meeting, President al-Sisi followed up on the executive situation of the main activities and projects carried out by the plants and companies affiliated to the Arab Organization for Industrialization in the field of civil and defensive industries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the Prime Minister of Egypt, and Engineer Karim Badawi, the Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources. The meeting tackled the key axes of the work and activities of the Ministry of Petroleum at the current stage. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivers a word on the occasion of the 73rd anniversary of the glorious July 23rd revolution of 1952. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives a phone call from Mr. Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister of Greece. The call revolved around the strategic and distinguished bilateral relations between Egypt and Greece. Via his official page on Facebook, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi states that he hereby offered his deepest condolences and those of the Egyptian people to his friend President Vladimir Putin and to the Russian people on the victims of the crashed passenger aeroplane in East Russia. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with Major General Mahmoud Tawfiq, the Egyptian Minister of Interior. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received a phone call from the French President Emmanuel Macron. The call emphasized the strength of bilateral relations between Egypt and France.